I think the most searched interview question on Google right now is tell me about yourself. And I'm not surprised because that's probably the most common interview question out there that's being asked in the one-on-one interviews. Hiring manager, you sit down, it's a very common first question. Well, Bill, I have your resume here. It looks great, but tell me a little bit about yourself. And people struggle with this. My name is Bill Benoist. I'm a certified professional career coach here in Silicon Valley. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you what I believe is the best way to answer this question. So first off, I want to encourage you to script out this answer. And the reason for this is, some people, they're hesitant to script out something or write out something because they don't want to sound phony, and that's not where we're going with this. I want you to feel comfortable in answering this. I want it to flow naturally, but you're going to be 100% authentic. So, take some notes here, and I want you to really kind of script this out so you can practice this answer so it flows very naturally for you the next time you go into an interview. So when I'm working with my clients one-on-one, I talk about answering this question in 4 elements. The first element is who you are in the present sense with a value-added quality. The second element is industries and or environments that you've worked in. The third element is what are your skills, what are your strengths, and the fourth element is what makes you unique. So before we go into each one of these elements, what I want you to understand is that hiring manager does not care if you were born in a breadbasket in Nebraska during the month of July in a barn during the worst storm of the century. I don't care what that story is. They don't care if you have twin daughters on the high school swim team. They want to know what it is that you're going to bring to the company. What is the value if you're the one that's selected? And so this is how we're going to answer it. So I'm going to start with that first element. Who you are in the present sense with a value-added quality. Who you are right now. Let me give you an example of something. A couple of years ago, I was working with a technical boot camp school. I was doing some career readiness workshops with the individuals that were graduating from this. And it was a 4-month, very intense boot camp where these individuals were learning how to code in Java and Python and some other languages out there. Now, the vast majority of these individuals were doing a career change. So there was some elementary school teachers, there was a couple of police officers, there were people from working in warehousing, there was even a chiropractor there. And when I started talking about who they are in the present sense, they were not a chiropractor, they were not a police officer, they were a software engineer. And that's what I want you to think about when you're answering this question. What is it that you're applying for? So let me give you an example. If I was to answer this question, I would sit there and say, well, as you can see, Mr. Hiring Manager, from my resume, I'm a certified professional career coach. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a value-added quality. So let me go ahead and rephrase this. So as you can see from my resume, I am a certified professional career coach. I mainly work with people in mid to late career. I like to say I help them find jobs that fuel their passion. What is your value-added quality? So if you're a software engineer, do you enjoy working with leading-edge technologies? Are you working in a medical device field? Is it because you want to help others? Are you in finance because you have this love for numbers? What is that quality that you can associate with that position? So first element, who you are in the present sense with a value-added statement, and I want you to write this out. Start writing this answer out. The second element, industries and or environments that you've worked in. Now I mentioned and or, right? Most of us are going to have both. We're going to have industries and we're going to have environments. And I'll go into each one of these in just a moment. But what I want you to understand is, like, if you're fresh out of the university, fresh out of college, you might not yet have industry experience, but you're certainly going to have some environment experience. So what are these two? When I'm talking industries, I'm not talking company names. I'm talking at a higher level up. Private, public, government, finance, software, computer hardware, computer networking, nonprofit, any of these are industries. I'm not mentioning company names, I'm mentioning industries. Now, when it comes to environments, this could be multicultural, it could be global, it could be remote, it could be fast paced, it could be Fortune 500. These are the environments. So, again, most people are going to have industries, and just about everybody's going to have environments that they've worked in. Even if they're a student, they were, multicultural, classrooms and stuff like this. So, I'm going back to my example, and I'm going to start from the beginning just so you can kind of see how this is flowing. So, Mr. Hiring Manager, as you can see from my resume, I'm a certified professional career coach. I primarily work with people in mid to late career. I like to say I help them find jobs that fuel their passion. I've worked in private, public, and government industries. Most recently, for the last 18 years, I was a vice president, information services, where I managed a team of 11 remotely across the US and Canada. So remote was an environment there. I never mentioned the company names. I just mentioned industries that I've worked in. The third element, what are your strengths? What are your skills? What is it that you're going to bring to the company? So let me give you a tip. You know what carries a lot more weight is if you can refer to an authority figure, and it actually doesn't even need to be a person. It could be an assessment test like the Gallup Strength Finders or the Myers-Briggs. But rather than saying, I have great leadership skills, you can sit there and say, in a number of reviews that I've had, my manager has said that I had great leadership skills. I think that's spot on. I'm definitely someone who, values the effort of the team. Or you can sit there and say, according to the Gallup Strength Finder assessment, my number one strength is strategy, and I think that's spot on. I definitely feel like I'm a visionary person. That carries a lot more weight than saying I believe I'm, highly strategic or I'm a visionary. When you're putting this as a reference to, something else is referencing this. Had a client a couple of years ago who I thought had a really great suggestion, and he says, "Is it okay if I refer to my LinkedIn recommendations?" He had a LinkedIn recommendation that talked about one of his strengths, one of his skills, and I thought that's perfect there. And then just agree with that. If you think that's spot on, then go ahead and agree with it. But this is going to be your third element. What are your skills? What are your strengths that you're going to bring to the position? Now, the fourth element is what makes you unique. Now, this is where you can actually bring a little bit of personal touch to it. So maybe you are the president of the PTA Association, or you're a volunteer with guide dogs for the blind, or there's something that really makes you kind of unique and stand out. So in other words, you don't want to say something that everybody else says, like when I like hiking and cooking and gardening and stuff like this. No, what is it makes you unique? What is it that could make you memorable during this interview? I had a client, another one a while back, and she loved the game of golf, and she says, I played every weekend and I actually have 2 hole-in-ones to my name. Boy, that's a conversation starter right there. I mean, a lot of people play golf and don't even have 1 hole-in-one, and she has 2 of them out there. For me, I would actually use my YouTube channel. So let me show you with my statement, my answer to this question, how I'd answer it in fully, and I want you to notice how well it flows. So Bob, as you can see from my resume, I'm a certified professional career coach. I primarily work with people in mid to late career. I like to say I help them find jobs that fuel their passion. I've worked in private, public, and government industries. Most recently, for the last 18 years, I was a vice president in information services, where I managed a remote team of 11 across the US and Canada. According to the Gallup Strength Finder, my number one strength is connectedness. I think that's spot on. I'm definitely a people person. I know how to break down those silos. And finally, something I think that makes me unique is about 3 years ago, I started a YouTube channel where I was uploading career tips and strategies every week. And today I have almost 300,000 views and several thousand subscribers. That would work wonderfully if I was interviewing at, say, Stanford University in their Career Center, and I sat down and the person says, "So Bill, tell me a little bit about yourself." This is the way you want to craft your answer. And again, I'm going back to something in the very beginning that I said, and that was, I want you to script this out. Script it out and then read it out loud and say, no, it's not even quite the message that I want to say. So you're going to erase it, and then you're going to put in the exact message, and you come back and say, all right, but that's not really the way I talk. Sometimes I have some ums and ahs in there. So erase it out again and say it and say, okay, that's my message, that's the way I talk, but man, that sounds robotic. And that's when you just keep practicing and practicing and practicing so it comes out very natural. So that's your homework assignment.